Hello and welcome to BTR News. Joining me on this episode is Bernard Creamer, educator and author of Who Stole the Soul, the Weaponization of Hip Hop, a Historical and Sociological Perspective. We will be discussing the controversy surrounding the hiring and now firing of the team that created an artificial intelligence called FN Meka that raps and put out music tracks in the genre. The most recent news is that Capitol Music Group, part of Universal Music Group, has quote unquote severed ties with the virtual rapper. The company then, quote, apologized, quote, whatever that is worth, to the Black community. So to start us off, Bernard, I'm just going to ask you, first of all, I don't know your timeline of hearing about this particular artificial intelligence project by this team of European descending people. Ain't no people, non-white people, let's put it that way. There's no non-white people part of this team. But it was very small controversy. I wouldn't even call it a controversy, but it was making a little news when it came out that they signed an artificial intelligence. So people were saying like the record company, the corporation, is still in the culture, so to speak. And now, and I even did a video saying that they don't even need poor kids from the ghetto living in poverty to put out this senseless lyrical content where it's just talking about death and destruction. Nothing good. We'll just call it negative. So, but then when it was discovered that it was an all-white team, then the controversy comes. Then, in order to, I guess, put the final nail in the coffin was to research and pull up some of the old tracks, and where this artificial intelligence has been programmed to produce the same kind of garbage rap, that you and I and others talk about and try to get the public to understand its detrimental impact on our communities and what have you. And so tell us, where did you come in on this storyline or timeline?
Probably a few days before Capitol canceled him. I know me and Kwabena spoke about it briefly for a minute, but
Kwabena is Kwabena Rasuli of Clear the Airways Project, for those that don't know who Kwabena is.
Yes, sir. We spoke about it briefly. And for me, it's just kind of more of the same, unfortunately. And historically, it's the same thing that's happened over and over again, where they've pretty much whittled down and corrupted our culture to the extent that not only have they whittled it down to where any of these so-called artists can come on and say some negative nonsense on a microphone and it gets sold or get TikTok views, but now they don't even need them, as you just alluded to. They no longer need them. And so if we can just cut out, capitalism dictates that if we can just cut out all the artists, then we can continue to make this negative music and continue to sell and have this AI creature or avatar doing concerts for us. Literally, they've cut out all of the overhead. They have nothing to pay but just create this image and put a track to it. But it's actually a brother that was involved, which makes the twist. It makes it even worse. Some cat, Kyle the Hooligan, who was a rapper, and he's claiming that the three white boys stole his sound, and that they stole his lyrics, and they stole the culture. And I have a problem calling it our culture because it's been corrupted to the extent where it no longer is hip hop culture for me. It's literally just negative propaganda. Behavior modification, that sort of thing, the devaluation of African people. And I listened to the song, that N-word, whether it was A or ER, was at least 30 or 40 times. It sounded like in that 2.5 minute track. And a lot of references to the disrespect of Black women. So
which track are you speaking about? Are we still talking about FN Meka or the genre in general? Yeah, so I didn't even listen to the whole track. I mean, the N-word came at me so quick. That's all I needed to hear on that F the Media track. As soon as I heard the hard ER, I quit listening. I ain't need to hear no more. What else I need to hear? You know what I'm saying? Plus, I don't want to contribute to his metrics, his positive metrics, and what have you. So that's all I need to hear. The second track I listened to that was a while back, he uses the GGA. That unfortunately some of our people have used that as an excuse, which has led to people outside of the community using that word. But I wanted to focus in on what culture is, you know, because other people's talking about Malcolm X and Frederick Douglass, and my parents and grandparents didn't die for AI with a program by a team of white boys. They didn't die for this, and calling them culture vultures. And I was like, you know what? They ain't died for that music that you talking about. It ain't died for no lyrics talking about shooting N-words in the face. It ain't talking about the degradation of women, you know, even name some famous, like Ida B. Wells and stuff. No, they wouldn't be down for that, you know, but culture, hip hop is the culture. Rap is a part of that culture. Because you know as well as I know, and old hip hop heads know, that when it was born in NYC with a number of ethnicities contributing to it, like the Puerto Ricans with the break dancing, and then you had people, the graffiti was part of it, and then the DJing part of it, and then comes the rap. You couldn't have rap battles without DJs and what have you. And so this is not part of culture. So I agree with you. Culture speaks of high form of art. This isn't a high form of art.
This is one of those times where, like Fred Hampton said, I mean, it's required that we heighten the contradictions. And you just spoke again about how the fake rage that comes about when something like this is done, when it's obvious in your face disrespect. But we don't handle the subtle disrespect too well, which is not so subtle, to be honest with you. But Capitol Records, they got Snoop Dogg on their label, Snoop Dogg, Lil Yachty, and Lil Baby. And so we're talking about artists that literally have the exact same format as this FN Meka.
Same content, same N-word.
Yep, same disrespect, same degradation of women for decades. And so for Capitol to apologize for this avatar, saying that they were being insensitive and starting, you know, regurgitating words like equity and that sort of thing, it doesn't exist. It's like literally it's disrespectful because we know damn well that if they came out with an avatar that was talking about killing dogs, they would shut it down. It wouldn't make it to 10 million TikTok views. If they were talking about killing Jews, it wouldn't make it to 10 million TikTok views. Anybody else, any animal on this planet, but as long as it's African people, it's okay. And so that's YouTube as well too. YouTube has to be held accountable for a lot of this stuff too, because that's TikTok actually. TikTok, because a lot of this
he does have a channel. The team, I don't want to talk about this avatar as if it's a person, you know what I'm saying? But the team does have a YouTube channel.
Yeah. What is it? Anthony Martini, Chris and Brandon Lee. One of them, the Anthony dude, is actually I guess a vocalist of some sort, and Chris and Brandy are the actual Brandon are the actual creators of the avatar. But yeah, three white boys that pretty much thought it was a good idea to come out with this avatar that basically does trap rap and calls African people N-words and B-words.
Now,
the same.
I want to
Capitol signed them.
Yeah, so I want to get beyond, you know, the justifiably emotional reaction to all of this and then break it down to just simple logic. Now, you alluded to something earlier about this same record company, Capitol Music Group, which again is part of Universal Music Group. So that's a whole nother range of artists and subsidiaries that they have. But you alluded to the content from the non-white artists. You mentioned Snoop Dogg, Lil Baby, and some others, and saying it's basically the same content, right? It's basically the same content. So I'm like, okay, what if this team of white boys retained the lawyer and sue them for discrimination because it's the same exact content coming from these non-white artists? Where's this legal rule? I know it's a street thing, that's been said in the Black community for a long time. Nobody else can use that word, the hard ER, or, even though it is white artists out there that have said it and they have not been canceled. But wouldn't it be interesting from a legal standpoint if this team filed a discrimination case? Just all the emotion out of it and the street rules out of it, would you say they had a case?
No. But the funny thing, or the wildest piece about it, is the dude that whose voice they used, Kyle, the hooligan, the brother that was involved. Mm-hmm. He's talking about suing the 3 white boys involved, because even before it became popular and it amassed 10 million hits on TikTok, they had a deal where the 3 white boys told him they was going to pretty much compensate him for utilizing whatever they used from him. But as soon as Capitol shut it down and the white boys shut it down, all of them distanced themselves from him. They just left him out there hanging. But the fact that this brother was willing to lend so much to these 3 white boys to disrespect Black people is crazy. And so they can always find somebody, just like they found Snoop Dogg, just like they found Lil Yachty, just like they found Lil Baby, to disrespect Black people, because it's profitable now. It's marketable. Nobody else, but you can disrespect Black people, and it's very profitable. So I don't know if they would have a case for discrimination for Capitol closing them out or shutting them down. I can't really think of a legal precedent, but you might have something.
I mean, when you look at the civil rights, it don't say this is just for African Americans. It talks about discrimination based on national origin. So that's like your immigrants, discrimination based on sex. Although people confuse that with gender, discrimination based on your religion, and discrimination based on your race. What is discrimination? Where I'm being treated unfairly or differently than another person.
Well, if anything, I would think it would be a First Amendment. They might have a little traction with the First Amendment violation.
Now, see, I've argued in the past and wrote a whole article on that, citing Supreme Court case law and other case law, when what's his name, Tim Wise, was making that First Amendment argument that he supposed he could stand in Times Square and yell the N-word at people and not expect to get punched in the face and knocked out, which had something that had actually happened. And I guess he was commenting on him. I was like, hold up, wait a minute. You just don't get to go around saying offensive words in public, and those are called, to use a legal term, fighting words. Mm-hmm. As African American, of course we know culturally that's a fighting word, but legally it's a fighting word when you use any kind of vulgar language, and then so I don't buy that First Amendment argument, but I do think they have a case. I would like to see that case. Right. You know what I'm saying? Whether they have a case or not, I hope they file it, because it would shine. I was talking to Kwabena Rasuli earlier. He was saying that would shine a bigger spotlight on the negativity and the ludicrousness of saying Black artists get to say it or non-white artists get to say it, but white artists don't. Why is anybody saying it?
And there's legal jargon. I don't know if I want to call it a precedent or a statute, but there is one that says that you have freedom of speech, and that freedom of speech is limited. Whereas if it puts a group or a group of individuals in danger or risk their safety, and that was actually exercised. I want to say Young Buck had an album where Lawyer Cohen stepped in, or the record company stepped in and said basically that you can't put this record out because it would endanger the lives of police officers. It was a record about, basically killing police. And they said you cannot put this out because it would endanger police officers. And in classes, they actually mentioned you can't sit in a movie theater, and shout fire, fire, because it puts people in danger. And so if you put people in compromising positions, that does limit your First Amendment rights. But again, it's okay to talk about murdering Black people.
No, it's not. It's not okay.
Let me finish. No, according to them, it's okay to talk about murdering Black people.
Right.
On wax, and it's okay to talk about disrespecting black women, as black women are 70,000 of the missing women in this country every single year. So it puts us in danger, which is okay. So there's a double standard, is what I'm saying.
And that's what I was agreeing with. It's not okay. But what you're saying is these corporate executives, not just at these record labels who put out this content and distribute this content, but also the corporate advertisers. You know, Kwabena has talked about at the NBA games, the music that they playing during intermission or even during the game. Sometimes Kwabena quit refereeing a middle school game, girls' middle school basketball game he was doing because that music came on. And the young players supported him, and it was the parents who was mad because he said unless they stopped playing that music, he wasn't going to referee the game. So, you know, corporate America bears some responsibility in this, and all of your apologies don't mean nothing when you perpetuating, you know, this negative imagery and promoting of the dehumanization of non-white people, specifically African Americans.
Yes, sir. You get no disagreement there. It's across the board, and I've been at bars in my particular neighborhood or in DC, where it's 99% white in the bar, and the soundtrack to the bar, the background music is Lil Yachty or Lil Baby. N-word, 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 all white bartenders. Maybe one black bartender. Well, I've had to correct them. Like, dude, turn that off. You know, I'm not going to sit there and listen to that nonsense. And had to argue with the brother about whether it's appropriate for that music to be played.
And what would you say that of this specific bar, their majority clientele was?
White.
Was it white? And see, then there's another argument that I've made here recently as it pertains to this story is, and you would agree, Kwabena agrees, that who is the biggest consumer, and when I say consumer, spending money on tickets to these concerts, buying the CDs or the downloads, and however they're getting it, that's legally purchasing this music, if it ain't these white kids.
Yep.
If it ain't these white kids. So how crazy is it, you know, for then people to say, or how illogical is it for other people to say that the ones who sustaining the commercialization of the form can't create their own where it's the exact copy? You know what I'm saying? It's just ludicrous.
Well, the door is wide open. That's for certain. The door is wide open, and white people have always enjoyed menstrual activity from us historically. You know, even going back to 1915 all the way up until now, they enjoy seeing that type of quote unquote entertainment from African people.
And also, I think that it's very sad that many African people don't see the harm in this type of lyrical content and imagery. You know, God bless them. I pray for them to live long enough to get wisdom and not get shot in the face as these songs suggest to people. But I mean, what can we do about that other than public education campaigns? Well, you got any thoughts?
Well, we continue pushing on the education piece, definitely, and just keep on raising the contradictions, exposing the nonsense when it arises, but also just be consistent and putting the positive out too. Because we do have positive rappers out here, culturally affirming rappers that are doing good music. We gotta lift them up. What was I about to say? In addition to what you just asked about, in terms of what we need to be doing, I totally forgot. But
I was talking about public education campaigns.
Continue doing that, definitely, and continue to raise and uplift those that are doing the culturally affirming work. There was another piece that I wanted to add too. It had something to do with the education piece, but my mind is shut down right now with them kids.
Oh, that's okay. Well, real quick, this is the last question. We'll go out on this. Does any of the chapters of your book, Who Stole the Soul, The Weaponization of Hip Hop, A Historical and Sociological Perspective, which is available on Amazon, and I found many other online retailers, does any of the chapters kind of deal with this particular story?
Yes.
Can you speak on that?
Yeah, the core for me, it's always capitalism. Just like I introduced to these eighth graders today. Um, by the time they leave my classroom, they're gonna understand capitalism because I understand capitalism to basically be where if you don't understand it, you don't understand anything about this world. And so if you're talking about hip hop, as with other cultural art forms that we created, it's gradually been whittled down to nothing. Like, it was an art form with you had DJs that were finding samples that you couldn't even identify, mixing them, cutting and scratching them or whatever to De La Soul, Tribe Called Quest, beautiful music. Um, and they didn't have to pay the royalties on them or whatever, for that stuff. I mean, that's a whole nother conversation. But anyway, you had lyricists where none of the lyricists wanted to be like the other lyricists. So they had to create their own lane. Everybody was creative with their flow. People had to, if you wasn't dropping some type of knowledge or some type of substance, or at least, doing the street sonnets in a creative way like Mobb Deep, you didn't have a place on the stage. You would just basically be out of it. There wasn't no room for you. So they've whittled that down. They've gotten rid of the DJs. They've gotten rid of all of the artists, the real artists of hip hop, even some of the 90s ones that were spitting some of the nonsense that opened the door for the day. And now we just got, and I don't like to, talk down to our kids, but it's literally them being exploited. Poor people will always be exploited for the most part. And they're basically being used to basically downgrade our culture. And so you don't have to have any talent. You don't have to have any lyricism. They literally have one person on a lot of these different labels that makes all the beats for them on a computer or whatever. And they just basically just run all the rappers through this one beat maker. So no DJ, just somebody on the computer and a bunch of trash being spit that degrades black people. And that's capitalism 101. So now they're not spending any money on a Wu-Tang Clan, or they're not spending any money on no DJs, on no equipment, on no concerts. All you got to do is have the beats and the rapper on stage. No overhead.
Wow. As you were speaking, I was thinking cultural genocide. That's part of genocide, destroy a culture.
Yes, sir.
I think textbook part of genocide, right?
Yep. That's in the book too. But most of the book I slid, it's like I wrote the book using hip hop as the skeleton. But I wanted people to have a clear understanding of what capitalism does and what it's doing to us in terms of wealth distribution, in terms of us being exploited by wealthy people, that sort of thing. And so it's all in there too. And some of these artists, I even mentioned in the book, we have to hold these artists accountable. But I don't solely put the blame into their laps because the nature of exploitation is such that if you got a poor kid, 19 years old from the projects, and you put $250,000 into his lap to say some nonsense that doesn't require any effort on a microphone, he's gonna do it. At 19, I wasn't I wasn't conscious at 19. I'll just say that.
I was not either.
Man, so yeah, that's what it is.
Bernard Creamer, thank you for speaking with BTR News today. Peace and blessings to you, brother, and keep up the great work.
I appreciate you, brother. Thank you.